Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of The Adaptable Chameleon. Today, we're joined by Taylor Stewart, a fantastic architect who is here to bring us more awareness into the concept of conscious home design. Thank you very much for being here, Taylor. And to get us started, really, so I came across your work, and one of the central points there was the idea of the conscious home design. So, to be more thoughtful about uh, the surrounding environment in your home, be it an apartment or building it from scratch with an architect, can really influence your well being, both mentally and physically. Can you tell us a bit more about this conscious home design concept?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Jose. Thanks for having me on the show, and hello, everyone listening. I promise I'm going to deliver some information, some knowledge that will be hopefully inspiring, but definitely will be applicable. No matter, I mean, most people probably are thinking, I'm not going to hire an architect anytime soon, maybe never. So, why is this relevant to me? But there are things that we can do, even if you live in an apartment, even if you're renting where you live. There are things that you can do that scientific data has shown us actually help us live longer statistically. It increases life expectancy and, of course, happiness, because it doesn't do you any good to live long if you're not happy while you're living. So they're intrinsically linked, right? And so
Yep.
I promise I'll share those with you today. So anyone listening, as long as you have a home, as long as you're not a digital nomad, you're going to have, and even for those people, you'll never see things the same way, and having this knowledge in your sort of library is just like it's an essential life skill, just like knowing how to dress for the occasion or how to prepare a well-balanced, nutritious meal. And so understanding the way your environment, kind of influences us is it's very helpful to know how it does that, because we all know about the mind-body connection, and if the mind is optimistic, then it's going to send a surge of energy into the body, and you're going to feel animated and ready to go and get things done. Conversely, if you're in a bad mood, then it's gonna dampen and depress the body, and you're not going to be engaging life as fully. And it also goes the other way. If the body is feeling happy, if you're really fit and energized, then that's going to send signals to the brain, hey, we're ready to go, get out of bed, let's get it done. And then, or if the body's feeling sick or not healthy, it's going to send signals, hey, we need to take it easy, right? And so it goes both ways, the body mind connection. But we know from scientific data that there's actually a body mind environment connection. And so my work with conscious home design is to expand on that and put it to work for us in our favor, because the environment is going to put an influence on us, whether
Mhm.
positive or negative. It is what it is. And so my job is to help people make sure that it's positive, so it's influencing us in the ways that we like, so that we can, so that it can help us in our goals, right? So that's what conscious home design really is. I think a lot of people, when they hear conscious home design, this idea, they're like, oh, that sounds sort of interesting, but what is that? What does it even mean? Does that mean it's like eco-friendly? Does that mean it's some sort of alternative building materials or some sort of different style? Like you
Mhm.
just drive into a neighborhood and you look at, oh, there's a conscious home. You can tell, you can recognize the different style or
Yes.
something. Or maybe people might think it's some sort of Eastern thing, like a feng shui or some sort of space clearing thing.
Right.
And it's actually none of those things. It can be any of them, but it doesn't limit itself to any one of those things. So you could have a cottage or a castle. You could have a modern home or a mid-century or an antique classical design or anything in between. So any style, any type of building material, whether it's conventional or alternative, anywhere in the world, any size, conscious home design applies to all of them, because it's not about the architecture per se. It's about the individuals who are living there and having that space
Mm.
and what activities they want to do. And then we shape the space to help them do those activities. So it's really about user experience and function. Yeah.
It's quite interesting hearing the words user experience applied to outside the screen, applied to our lives, our surrounding space, even the physical spaces. So, from that description, would you say that before, let's say, for example, I'm moving to a new house, so it's already constructed. I'm not even, um, let's say, having a say on how it's physically built.
Sure.
So when thinking about designing, like what furniture to buy, where to put the furniture, all that goes into populating the
Mm.
spaces, would you say that it's important to first think of what you want to do? Like almost, okay, I want to follow through on those habits, and to achieve those habits, I will need to have these prerequisite spaces to achieve them.
Now you're right on the money with that, Jose. That's
Okay.
exactly it. Yeah. It's most people will end up, moving into a home that's already built. It wasn't built specifically for them, and so they have to do the best they can with the walls they have. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So conscious home design, if you were, to, read the book and do the workbook, which is, which is just worksheets and exercises that, here's the book. The big idea is in the book. It's an easy read. It's only 100 pages. So it's not very technical.
Straight to the
It's just
point.
very accessible. Yeah. You might not know the difference between one wall and another, and you'd still be able to get value. I didn't want to make it like a textbook. It's just it's an easy read. Yeah. But will make you think, if you read it, and think about it. But then I created a workbook to go with the book, which is basically taking, the ideas, and we're doing these exercises and worksheets so that you can
Really
take
get you
those
to think
concepts
and
and say,
actually.
how does that fit for me? Like, I'm unique, like I don't do the same things that everyone else does, or
Right.
like my daily routine is slightly different from someone else. So what's that look like? And it helps you plan for that, and in a way that's more it's a system, right? So it helps you. We don't leave any stone unturned. It's like, hey, these are the things that science has told us contribute highly to, human happiness, satisfaction, excellence, helping us reach our potential. And so rather than being haphazard and be like, oh, I like this thing, it would be nice to do that. And it's very hit or miss, like Jose, everyone, has a list, a wish list of things they want in a home. When you go home shopping, you're like, oh, okay, here's my list, right? And you go and you see if you can afford it. You can see if you can find that on the market. I promise you that there's a secret list that most people haven't even thought about. There are things that should be on that list that people aren't thinking about, and that's because they haven't done it's because I live and breathe the work. It's conscious home design. I've been an architect. I've been in this industry for 25 years, and I wrote the book after 20 years of practice and experience. And it was really everything I learned over those decades and congealed or gelled into this, an idea, a concept, a system, a methodology to make sure you everything. So that's really you want to start with those human activities. You're right on the money with that, with the specific activities that you want to do in your day and in your routine.
I'm gonna say something, so essentially almost playing back to you what I captured, and please by all means add in any corrections or anything missing. So
Sure.
if you're starting from a place where you already have a house built, moving in, renting, staying for a semester, etc., you start from that place of thinking through the things you want to achieve and how the house can support you and how you can design the house within to support you. If you're really starting from scratch, you're hiring an architect, maybe I'm working with yourself, Taylor, to build the house of my dreams. How does the process change if I have that liberty to literally start from scratch, from a blank canvas?
Right. So, for example, if you or anyone else was, gonna said, hey, it's time for us to move. I need to go and get a new place. And you don't have time or interest to build or design and build from scratch. And you're just shopping on the open marketplace. You can read the book. You can do the exercises in the workbook. And then what happens is it generates that list, that shopping list. It's like, oh, now I know what I'm looking for, and so it will sharpen your focus when you're looking at different houses, when you're touring different, floor plans online, or different, things that are on the market that you can move to, that you're seeing, on realtor.com or whatever. It can help you evaluate the spaces more effectively. And so, that way it can help you narrow it down, because it's like maybe house A and house B are in the same neighborhood, same price point, but how do you know which one to get, and people usually fall back in that circumstance. People usually fall back on, oh, well, this one had the new roof put on, or this one is a style that I like a little bit more, and so people end up making a choice based on a maintenance condition or an architectural design style. Yet those things aren't ultimately going to contribute to your real happiness and satisfaction. Yes, aesthetics do matter. You need to look at your home. If you love the way your home looks, that does feed you. So I'm not saying it's unimportant, but from what the data tells us, from what science tells us, it's not the biggest thing that's important. Yes, there are other things that are more important than that. So you don't want to choose the ugly house. I mean, if you chose the ugly house, but it had the right spaces for you, then you can work to beautify it. Yes.
Right.
But if you choose the beautiful house that doesn't have the right spaces for you, the house may be beautiful, but it doesn't fit. It's gonna cramp your style. It's not gonna flow. It's gonna cause friction, and every day you're living there is gonna be frustrating. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. It's easier to beautify a space than it is to renovate and remove walls and create more space. You know what I mean? And so, so you want to, there's trade-offs, but but having that list, having the science-backed list of conscious home design is going to help you more judiciously evaluate and make your choices. Right now, at best, you're still, I look at the homes on the market. I've seen thousands, countless thousands, who knows how many floor plans and houses I've seen, and very few meet all the criteria of conscious home design. Yeah, because we're still designing the way we did, in the 1900s.
Gotcha.
We have made advancements in style. We've made advances in technology. We have smart thermostats that are connected to your phone, and when the GPS says, "Hey, look, they're coming home. They're leaving work. It's time," and it can turn up the heat or turn up the air conditioning in your house so that it's the right temperature when you get home. Rather than maintaining it at that temperature all day long. And so we've made technological and energy efficiency advances, and styles have modified a little bit, but we're still doing the same thing: bedroom, dining room, kitchen, living room. It's still the same plan, and it hasn't changed. But we've learned so much about what actually makes people happy since then. It's just, architecture by and large is not incorporating what all the other fields of psychology and physical health and all these have learned. And so there's a disconnect. And so conscious home design is about bringing the home design into the 21st century, so it can benefit from the knowledge that all the other fields have found. So when you are shopping for an existing building, an existing home, you can get pretty good, but it probably won't be perfect. Yeah. Right. If you're fortunate enough to be able to build your own home, then it's like shopping for clothes. You can go to the store and you can get pretty good and put it on. But when you go to the tailor and they measure your sleeves and your shoulders and your waist and how long you are, and that it fits you perfectly, right? It's formed to your body. And so that's what working with an architect, working with conscious home design does, is it helps you shape your home exactly the way you want to live. And it doesn't mean that you're stuck in that position, because we know that people adapt and grow as they go through. And so we know, well, how long do you plan to be here? Are you a growing family? And so you're going to be here to raise a family. You plan to be here for 20 years, 25 years. But then after the kids are grown and gone, you want to downsize, because why do you need a 5-bedroom house if it's just you and your spouse, right? Like, why maintain all that real estate? So then, or are you empty nest now, and you're at the phase of life where the kids are grown and gone, and you want to downsize and you want to build a forever home, right? That you can age in place. And so understanding the phase of life you're in and what purpose the home has to serve and how adaptable it needs to be for the future, we plan for that, right? We don't box you in, so we custom fit it. We make it fit like a glove, but also with an eye to the future for how it can evolve and grow with you. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to build your own home from the ground up, it is a tremendous opportunity to shape your future and take control of your destiny, because we spend half of our lives in our home. Maybe not. There may be some phases where you're only at home 6 hours a day. There may be a certain time in your life where you're barely at home at all. You just go there to crash and shower and get out the door again. But over the full scope of your life, about half of your life is going to be spent in your home. So it really does, the environment really plays an influence. Winston Churchill said, we shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us. And so, and one of my favorite quotes by Yogananda is, environment is stronger than willpower. And, I really had to pause and think about that for a while and be like, what does that mean? And there's many levels and layers to that. But one of them, that comes to mind is like, well, the human will is very powerful. And in any given moment, we can make a tremendous surge of will and break, and overcome an obstacle, overcome a challenge, overcome resistance, overcome conditions, overcome all sorts of limitations, right? Whether they're our own or outside of us. Those are breach moments, like when a whale comes up and breaks the surface and surges and breaches, that's a mighty effort, and they breach, but then gravity takes over and they come back down and they live in the ocean. It's like they don't live above the surface of the water, right? The environment they live in is the ocean, and they come back to that.
Exactly.
So for us, yes, we can have moments of will and overcome, but the environment that we live in, it works on us 24/7. You know what I mean? It works on us all the time. Our environment, whether we're at the home or in the office or wherever, our environment is always pushing on us. And so, even when we're tired or when we're, not exerting our will, that's when it's going to win. Just like a tree root, can growing under a sidewalk, can lift that stone up, or that concrete up. It's just that slow, constant pressure. Wood is softer than concrete, but the wood wins in the end because of constant ongoing pressure. And so the environment works like that for us. And so when you have the opportunity to shape your environment, well, now you're shaping your future. You're taking your own destiny in your hands, if that makes sense, right? Because
sure.
you can set all these sorts of goals, but if your environment is not supportive of those goals, you're swimming upstream. You're going against the current. You're having to overcome extra friction in your environment, right? So we want to create ease and flow and grace in the environment so that it gives you a lift and is working for you. Yeah. It's like in the Tour de France where they all are bicycling, and they bunch up in a pack, because the ones behind, they draft, the ones in the front break the wind, they overcome the wind resistance. The ones behind don't have to pedal as hard. And so that's what the environment is like. We want to set up your home to where you're drafting through your days rather than having to break the wind all the time. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure. Even I was thinking, because this year was a lot of change from a psychological perspective, and thinking through what can propel that change forward. That's the first. The second thing is what stays there with you throughout the change. Then the third thing is what you need to leave behind. And
Mm.
the home, especially if you're spending there half of your life, is definitely one of those that stays constant with you throughout.
Uh-huh.
So I can definitely see now the importance of being very conscious about designing your home, because it's going to
Yeah.
be there for you, and it's going to be either support or something that gets in your way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, typical home, it's adequate to serve our basic needs.
Hmm.
We can it's shelter, right?
Yeah,
And we can even decorate it and it can become beautiful shelter, but it doesn't necessarily serve all of our higher needs, right? So um we're more than just animals. We need more than just a place to sleep, prepare food, wash and
those
do our
basic
business,
needs.
right? Yeah, exactly. We have we have love and connection needs. We have creative expression needs. We
Hmm.
have um, needs for self development and personal improvement. We need to feel like we're good at something, or that we're getting good at something. We need to feel like we're growing and accomplishing and expanding. So that we're fulfilling our potential. We're creating ourselves anew. We're creating
Hmm.
the next version of ourselves. As we move through life, it's not static, right? So, this is what Abraham Maslow said, the hierarchy of human needs pyramid, right?
Right,
He
right.
was the psychologist, and his work really took off between the 1950s and the whole second half of the 1900s. And his concepts have stood the test of time, in every industry, in every circumstance, all around the world, at different cultures and everything. It's very universal. These are the human needs that we have to live, not just survive, but to thrive and be, sort of self-actualized, and to really reach our potential. And so the highest aim of architecture is to help people reach their potential. And so um, your home really can play a factor in that.
For sure, because it's one of those that, if it's unstable, like you're dealing with leaky leaky water tubes, you're dealing with, there's something wrong, but you can't quite put your finger in it, and every day you're going back and forth, leaving the house, coming back to this fog of something is off, but I can't quite put my finger on it. It's
Sure.
mentally draining. It will be a faulty step in that self-actualization pyramid.
Right. Yeah. Picking the home, having a home that supports you is very similar to having a good diet. It's like, on any day of the week or for a short time, like if you're in college, you can live on ramen noodles and hot chocolate. You can get away with that for a few years. But if you live like that way for your whole life, you're going to die young, because you're not going to have good nutrition. You know what I mean? The body will suffer over time.
Yeah,
And so, so picking a good diet, picking a good spouse, the company we keep, the people we hang out with, are really major influences on how successful we are in life. And the home, to your point, being that constant, is one of those things, is one of those major factors that are going to determine, how successful we are, what we reach in life, right? Think about the Mona Lisa, the most famous painting in the world. Yeah. So, by the way, the Mona Lisa turned 500 years old recently.
oh, 500 already.
Yeah, about 10 years ago, it was 500 years old. Sorry, right? Leonardo da Vinci started painting it in the early 1500s, like 1505, 1506. Scholars aren't sure exactly on the year, but within one of those, right in the
An
early
approximation.
1500s. What's that?
An approximation.
An approximation, yeah, exactly. So early 1500s, Da Vinci started painting the Mona Lisa. Well, it turns out he worked on that painting for more than a decade. He didn't do it all at once. He just kept on working and working and working on it. And I thought about that, and I was like, that's just that just shows that all of our human advancements, from science, from technology, from to medicine to art, they're all made possible by architecture. Because without architecture, without the ability to control our environment, we wouldn't be able to accomplish anything that took longer than a sunny afternoon. Because as soon as the weather changed or the wild animals came or hostile tribe neighbors or whatever, they'd mess everything
It's
up. So architecture, the ability to control our environment and dedicate space to a certain activity, is really what allows us to build on yesterday's achievements. So because Leonardo da Vinci had not just a home, but he had an art studio, he had architecture for the sole purpose of creating art. Yes, he had room to create art in his life. He was able to work on the painting whenever he felt inspiration, or whenever he had a break from other projects, and when it was done or when it was time to stop, he could put it away and keep it safe and then do his other things. And so that's what conscious home design recognizes, is that we all have this intuitive knowledge. Hey, it takes time and it takes effort to become good at something. Seth Godin says 10,000 hours. Hey, it takes 10,000 hours to achieve expert or mastery at an activity, depending on what it is.
Yeah, the classic standard.
But that's this sort of nice benchmark. Hey, 10,000 hours. So we all know, you got to practice makes perfect. You're not going to get good at it without working at it. You need to invest the time, right? So it takes time and effort to accomplish your goals. But what's missing from that formula is that it also takes space. Because if you don't have space, if Leonardo da Vinci didn't have space, if he didn't have an art studio, then the Mona Lisa would have perished before he finished it. He never would have accomplished it, right? And so I want to look at, like through Maslow's, what are the activities that we need to do to be happy, to be fulfilled, to reach our potential, to achieve our goals and our dreams, and then make sure that we dedicate space to those things, to those activities, so that we have the chance, the opportunity to actually do them and engage in them. Yeah.
It's potentially, because as you were talking, especially tying up the concept of having a home, having a dedicated space for having that persistence over time, maybe potentially, let's call it, the lack of attention to the home design has been from that expectancy that you will always have a home. It's almost an afterthought. It's just natural for you to have a home. It's just part of life. You're a human and you have a roof over your head. But people are forgetting that roof and what's beneath it is actually propelling you for everything surrounding in your life.
Yes, that's right. And that's why I call 99% of the architecture I see unconscious design, because it's conscious, it's intentional, but the program that it's trying to solve is very basic. It's not the full. It's not. Right, even in our Declaration of Independence, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so, we accept this as a human right. That we have a human right to life, to freedom, and to be happy, or at least to pursue what makes us happy. And so architecture, was built, first fundamentally as shelter. Hey, we got to, keep the rain off. We need walls so we can have a roof, right? It's just started at shelter, and it's like, oh, it's cold, so we have a fire. Oh, it's smoky in here. Well, we need to have windows, or we need to have chimneys. It's like it evolved based on survival, but we have advanced far enough to where the home is no longer just a place of survival. It's now a place where, rather than just living and not dying, it's a place where we can actually grow and thrive if we are intentional about the way we shape it. And I'm not saying that a conscious home design has to be bigger. I'm not saying you have to have more space. It's just, how are we using the space that we have? If you come to me and say, I want to build a brand new home, but my budget in this marketplace only allows me for 1,000 square feet, then we'll do the best we can with that. If you come and say, well, I've got a budget for 2,000 square feet or 5,000 square feet, whatever it is, we'll do the best we can with that. Yes, I'm not saying that, hey, to have conscious home design, you have to have 3,000 square feet of space. It doesn't work that way. It's just about how you use the space, that you do have, and being intentional about that.
Yeah, I'd imagine from our conversation that it's not even about the space, it's independent of the space, how you are using that space for your purposes. So even if it's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, etc.,
Right.
it's just a matter of scaling the same principles.
Possibly. Um, I like size appropriate spaces. Sometimes I see people and they've got money and they're like, hey, I can afford more, so give me more. And then they design. I've seen people, you see it all the time in the design magazines, on Pinterest or Instagram. You see what I call eye candy. You see these showcase kitchens where it's like, wow, these people spent $100,000 just on the appliances. They spent another $100,000 just on the cabinets, and the countertops, right? And the thing is like a cathedral. It's like a cathedral to cooking, But the refrigerator is literally 20 feet away from the sink. It's like, try to make a sandwich in a kitchen like that. It's like you go to the refrigerator, you want to take out the lettuce and the bread and the mustard and the mayonnaise and the tomatoes and the cheese and the slices, and it's like, where are you going to put it? You gotta walk over to the sink so that you can wash off the produce. You want to rinse the lettuce and you want to wash off the tomatoes. You're gonna, the chances of you dropping something on the floor and making a mess go up, right? So, and think about if you're short on time in the morning, or think about if you're just a little tired. You've had a tough day, at the end of the day, and then you have to prepare food in a kitchen like that. It's going to encourage you to take shortcuts. It's
Sure.
inefficient. It may be beautiful, but it's an inefficient kitchen. The layout is not conducive to quickly making food. It's harder to keep clean. It's going to be harder to maintain a healthy, balanced diet in a kitchen like that. So just because it's bigger does not mean it's better. You don't necessarily want to scale it up. The room needs to be size appropriate for the activity that's going to be taking place there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's almost tying up, for example, with factories, where they are very precise about for example, the timings of moving product A or material A to the location B. So actually, that leads me to the question: do you think then factories or even kitchens, those restaurant kitchens rather, those spaces that need to be very effective and really bring out the best of the people within, would you consider them to be like naturally conscious designs?
So those sort of, there's bad commercial kitchens too. I've worked in some, when I was coming up, as a teenager, working as a dishwasher, doing prep, stuff like, it's like, I've seen good kitchens, I've seen bad kitchens, and also as an architect, I've designed some commercial kitchens as well. And so I've seen a lot of kitchens that are designed by people who obviously don't cook, and you can tell that, right? So, but the best ones, they're conscious is a leap, but they are intentional. They're designed for efficiency and effectiveness. They know that if the distance from this workstation to this workstation is 3 feet too long, then that's more steps. And per hour, they might only be able to produce 75 meals, as opposed to if they made all these little efficiencies around, they could produce 100 meals in an hour. Do you understand?
Exactly.
That means less wait time for people, which makes people happy, which means people come back because, hey, I didn't have to wait 45 minutes for my meal to come out. It came out, we ordered, and it was out in 20 minutes. That's happy. So you get good referrals. It's just good business, right? You can turn over more tables per night, but people also want to come back more frequently because they know they don't have to wait forever to get their food, right? So good kitchen design is, in that context, is good business. And that's just what I call efficiency. And so that's you can be very intentional about that, but it's not necessarily conscious in the terms of we're trying to help people reach their highest potential and their highest goal, right? So You would say, I would say, like, if you want to take it to that other level of real,
Consciousness.
almost spiritual dimension, then you would say that, the intention that we hold when we do something puts an energetic signature, sort of a frequency is embedded in the activity we do. And so if you're preparing someone's food and you're having angry thoughts, maybe some angry energy is going into that food. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But if you're sitting there having very loving thoughts and you're conscious and maybe you're singing a happy song, something that's very nurturing or generous, and you're aware that someone's going to be eating this food that you're lovingly preparing. Yeah. You send that out. And so both circumstances, the loving preparation and the angry preparation, can happen in the same intentionally efficient kitchen. But one of them is conscious and one of them is unconscious. Does that make sense? So conscious design is sort of understanding that happy people are better citizens. If you're unhappy and miserable, you really don't care if your house is energy efficient and was built using sustainable materials or any of these things. You're not a good citizen of planet Earth. You don't care about walking lightly and giving back and being a person. You're just focused on yourself. And so conscious home design says, let's try to do the things that we know make people happy, because you can't have a happy nation unless you have a nation of happy individuals.
Right.
Nations are made up of their citizens. And so for happy, it's like world peace, let it begin with me. Right? Think globally, act locally.
That's the perfect statement, because from this conversation, it almost sounds like, how a few years ago in the Monterey, we went through that process of like globally trying to, quote unquote, educate people on recycling, because it's like a core tenet of being a good citizen. It's almost like being conscious of conscious home design is almost one of those core tenets as well. Because, like you're saying, it will help you as an individual to show up better, show up with more energy, be more prepared to achieve your goals, and that naturally will propagate to the other people. The 1,000 people you will interact with another 1,000, and so on. It's exponential.
It is the ripple effect. It's the butterfly effect. The mathematician wrote a paper, do the flapping of a butterfly's wings in Brazil eventually set off a tornado in Texas? Do these initial conditions, however small, exponentially grow until they're world changing? Yes. And so that's what we're doing. We're saying, hey, the highest aim of architecture is to help people reach their potential and feel like their life is full of possibility. If your home is pressing in on you, or your environment, your reality, your external circumstances are limiting you and hindering you from doing the things that you love to do, or the things that you want to do, that's frustrating, and it can be depressing, and eventually, it can lead to hopelessness and despair, right? That's not a good place. That's not a good place to be, right? But if you feel like, hey, even if you're too busy, but if you have the space, like, let's say you love to play a musical instrument, maybe it's the cello, maybe it's the saxophone, I don't know, but a musical instrument, for example, and playing your musical instrument gives you joy. It sparks something inside of you, and you feel happier and energized when you do it. But if you don't have space and your musical instrument is in a case locked in a closet, and you only have 5 minutes, you're not going to go over there and open and get it up and set it up, and you're not going to do it. But if you have a music room or a little alcove or a corner where it's set up and all you have is 5 minutes, you can just take 2 steps over the side, sit down, grab your instrument and play for 5 minutes, do a few scales, play one song, right? And you may think, well, it's not an hour, before I had kids or before I had this job with a long commute to it, I had more time, and I don't right now. And you can be upset about that. True. But you just say, well, I'll have more time in the future. But right now, today, I can play for 5 minutes. And every little step you take in the direction of your dreams or your goals or your happiness sets up a positive feedback loop. And it reinforces in the back of your mind, in the subconscious, you know what? My life is full of possibility. I do have opportunities to do the things that I love. Life is working for me. My goals are achievable. Maybe hard, may take a long time, but they're possible, right? And so that's what conscious home design, that's the aim of conscious home design, is to show people a life of possibility.
That's great, because it's also, in a word that's very common these days, it's giving people agency. Because it's like you're saying, it's giving people the sense that life doesn't happen to them, they make life happen for them. They can go play that instrument and become good. Maybe they don't become professional musicians, but they feel good about becoming proficient at the instrument. And
that's right. It can just be for a hobby. You don't have to become a professional. It's just for yourself.
Or something you enjoy.
That's right.
And I think it's even, as we talk more and more about the conscious home design, I think it's something that a lot of the self-help and motivational discourse online and even offline misses, because there's that classic example of, oh, you want to build the habit of going to the gym, you put your shoes in the front door, so when you get up in the morning, it's all set to go.
That's right.
But what about like the walls, the pathway for you to get to the front door? You're missing that whole stretch of the journey since you get out of the bed.
Right. So conscious home design, when I'm working with someone, I really look at the flow and where the space is located and what's that circulation path look like and what do they see, what do they experience, and is it efficient? Can we build the spaces? Can we shape them in a way that are going to support their daily routines? Yeah. So, for instance, one of a big challenge that most people have is keeping some sort of physical activity going to keep their bodies, optimized, right? Like, or even just not fading, because they say use it or lose it, right? Especially as we age, the muscle mass, it's harder to the body starts down, right? And so one of the things people are doing is like putting their home gym, in the basement, if you have a basement. It depends on, what part of the country you're living in. In Florida, they don't do basements, but up in New England, we do basements all the time because you got to dig down below the frozen ground. You have to put the footings, the foundation of the house below the depth of where the ground freezes. And if you're digging a big hole to get the foundation in there, well, rather than fill the hole back in, you might as well just,
use it for something.
Space, use it for something. Exactly. And so a lot of people are saying, hey, let's get some exercise equipment and stick it in our basement. And, it's a great idea. And I certainly encourage it because now you have a home gym. Mm-hmm. But again, if it's that I only have 5 minutes in the morning and I'm pressed for time, or I'm tired at the end of the day, and down there it's dark and maybe it smells a little musty, and it's not very inspiring, you're just going to shut the door and be like, I'm not going down there today. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's like, well, what happens if, we put that room, well, first in conscious home design, I would say, well, okay, sure. Maybe you don't like getting on a treadmill. Maybe you don't like lifting weights. That just makes a chore out of this thing. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you like to do that is fun? Like maybe you enjoy doing yoga postures. Maybe you enjoy doing a martial arts workout, or Tai Chi. Mm-hmm. Maybe you enjoy dancing of some style or another. And so then I said, well, let's focus on happy physical activities. And then let's see if we can put them right in the path of circulation. So between your bedroom and your kitchen, so that you go right through that space or right past it, every day on your routine. And so all you have to do is just take a couple of minutes and go there and do that fun thing for you. And then there it is. So we've built success into your life in the same way that it's a system, in the same way that leaving your keys and your shoes and your wallet ready to go in the same place every time. That way it saves you time of having to run around going, where are my keys? Because you know where they are. You've built a system in place for that efficiency. We do the same thing with all of your other activities. Yeah.
For sure. And yeah, I can imagine. So I live in an apartment, so to go to the gym, I physically go to the facility. But sure. I imagine like being on the top floor of your house and thinking, oh, let's go to the basement to do some workouts. The dark, damp place to lift weights. This
It
was
takes
so
it takes extra effort and willpower to do that. And
exactly. You're
if you're
so
an
completely
athlete and you're highly motivated because that's one of your joyous activities, then that's not a problem for you. But for
right.
people that it doesn't come naturally, they don't have an exercise habit, that's going to be a friction point. Yeah,
I'd say even for the athletes, it's taking effort off the training itself because
that's
they're
true.
forcing themselves to get there. So it's a lose-lose scenario, unfortunately.
Sure, sure. Having a gym in the basement is still worth doing because
Oh, for
it's
sure.
there and you have opportunity to do it, but it's not necessarily going to be the most ideal place for it.
Exactly. We're in this
Yes.
call. We're aiming for the optimal solution.
That's right. That's right. What I try to do is give people the very best that's possible within the limitations of reality, whether
Okay.
that's the size of the building lot or the budget or whatever the limitations are. We have to work within those constraints, but we try to get the very best we can. Conscious home design meets you wherever you are and says, okay, this is where you are. What's the next version of you going to look like? And I'm not here to tell you what your life. I'm not saying, hey, you got to have green walls or you got to have blue this or I'm just going to say, hey, what do you want? I'm going to ask you the right questions. The workbook is about asking the right questions so that we don't forget something and leave it out. And then once we have those answers, oh, okay, now you've told me what you want. Here's what that could look like as a floor plan, right? And then we can talk about that and go back and forth. Oh, and we can discuss why I put this room next to this room and why I put these rooms farther apart from each other for separation. Some things need connection, some things need isolation. So it just,
Right.
it depends on the activity. And we can discuss and say, is this size appropriate? Is that room too big or is it too small? Is it in the right location? Is it accessible? Do we want, and so then we have a discussion, we go back and forth and we revise and revise and revise until we come up with the golden floor plan.
That's one of the questions I had for you as well, Taylor. So what actually looks like working with you? So let's imagine I have a field, I want to build a house, and I want to work with you, to collaborate with you to build that house of my dreams, but being very conscious about it. What can I expect from that process?
It begins with a conversation, just understanding what your goals are, what your hopes are, what your budget is, what your do you already own a piece of land, or are you just wanting to come up with a generic floor plan, and once you have your perfectly designed home, just see where you can drop it, go shopping for land after. I typically think that the best homes are built site specific. So, have the land first so that we can design the home in a way that takes advantage of any views or shelters from, certain,
Weather
environmental
conditions, for example.
factors, right? So the best homes are built site specific, but many homes can be very successfully built designed first, and then people buy stock floor plans all the time and they just buy them pre-done and drop them on their site. It works. It's not exactly the highest example of conscious home design. So anyway, it's just understanding where you are and what you have and what your goals are. So we have that initial conversation, and then if you're like, yeah, let's do it, we're ready to move forward, then it's just figuring out the scope of work. Do you want me to help you through the conceptual process? Do you want me to and just do concept drawings, or do you want me to do like blueprints, like highly detailed construction documents where I say use this size board and use these types of fasteners, and it's specifications, and you need
Very
that for
detailed. Yeah.
building permit. Yeah. And sometimes you may say, well, can you help me find a builder? Can you help me interview contractors and negotiate a good agreement between them and get someone on board? And then periodically when they say, hey, it's done, or this phase is done, I'm ready to get paid, will you check in and make sure that they did the work, satisfactorily, or, at least it is done. They say it's done, but maybe it's not done, so check in during the construction process. So depends on how do you want me from the very beginning to the very end, or just for certain phases? And so we define the scope of work, and I help you navigate those processes, and it's all based on the scope of work is what the fee structure is like. But that's how it that's really in a nutshell how we work, and that's very traditional. That pretty much every architect works on that type of uh, format.
Bringing that sort of partnership across from the ideation until potentially having the house fully
Until
built.
moving in, yeah.
Until
and,
moving
and,
in.
and even post occupancy, right? Like sometimes I'll come, because the contractors will give a warranty on their work. Usually it's 1 or 2 years, and so I've sometimes will at month 11 I'll walk the property and see if anything needs to be touched up or repaired or fixed, and make a list, and then we send that off to the contractor and say, hey, we're still under warranty, but these things need attention, and then they'll come back and take care of that. So even post occupancy services are available. So yeah, but the real gold is in the planning, is in the conscious home design part. Yeah, and I just don't know any other architects that are doing it as thoroughly and as attentively as conscious home design. I'm working to certify other architects so that they can, because I can't serve the whole world, but the whole world I wish had this, right? So what I'd like to have a conscious home design certified designer in every state, so that they can, so that we can really, again, those ripples.
Make the country more conscious.
That's right. Yeah. So, usually people are hiring architects because they like the style that they specialize in. But conscious home design is about any style. It's really about you. So, there's something I wanted to share with people. I did make a promise that I would, we've given a lot of value here already. These ideas are big, but I wanted to tie one into science, and one that was actually, these are big ideas. These are and not easy to implement. I wanted to give listeners, something that they could actually implement, that you could implement even in your apartment, Jose. So Harvard did a study on adult happiness, and it started in 1938. And it's still going on today. It's been 87 years. It's the largest and the longest of its kind in the history of the world. They studied thousands of individuals, and they started with a full physical, what's their health look like, and then also mental, emotional, sort of psych evaluation. And they just basically did a full assessment. Who are these people? And then they also asked them what their circumstances were. What's their living situation? What's going on with their work or career, or all of the external circumstances, and they tracked them through their whole lives. All the original participants have passed on now because they were over 18 when they began, and it's been 87 years. So do the math, right? So they're all 105 years old. So that they're all passed on, but they're on to second and third generations now. They tracked them through their whole life, and they found that regardless of business or career success or failure, or health challenges, the ups and downs of life that all humans go through, they found that the single biggest predictor of how long people lived, adding years to their life, and not only living longer, but reporting that they feel like they had a fulfilling life, a rich life. They found the single biggest predictor of that was the quality of their relationships. And so when I read that, I came across the Harvard study when I was researching my book, when I was, before I published Conscious Home Design. And when I found out about that intuitively makes sense, right? We all know, oh, of course, yeah, your relationships, happy wife, happy life, whatever it is. But it made me pause and say, oh, well, if that's true, we know that intuitively, but now we actually have math to prove it and say that it's the single biggest thing that contributes to these things. And it's like, oh, if it's that important, what can conscious home design do to facilitate that, to support that, to encourage that, right? To help us have good relationships. And so the study was very clear that good relationships was not limited to a romantic partnership. It was all of our relationships that we have. And so I started thinking, right. I started thinking about that. I said, well, what kind of relationships? And as I dove in. I looked at the Greeks. The Greeks have 7 different words for different qualities of love. Agape or filial. They have all these different storge. They have all these different types based on, is it love between brothers? Is it love between spouses? Is it love between parent and child? Is it, what kind of love is this? But still, I wanted to go deeper. That's still not enough. And I found that all of our human relationships can fall into one of 3 broad categories, and those are giving, receiving, and reciprocal. And so giving relationships are ones where we are the primary giver. And that means we are giving our love, care, and attention, wisdom, whatever, to someone else, those that we mentor or teach, children that we're raising or babysitting, or teaching, if we're an educator. That can even go towards people that we're mentoring, at work or in business. And it can even extend to plants and animals, right? Whether you have pets or whether you have a bird feeder for the birds outside, that's a giving relationship. It's an example where we are showing attention and care and nurturing to someone else. And so our reciprocal relationships are like what you and I are having right now. A reciprocal relationship is where 2 people are standing on equal footing, on equal terms. They're individuals, and they can just have an honest discussion. You don't have to be like wearing a face of a role model as you would where if you're being a mentor or a teacher or raising children, where you have to put on your best behavior to model something. Like I don't have to pretend with you or act with you. I can just be honest, right? And so it's a different type of relationship experience, right? And so we're going to have a reciprocal relationship with colleagues and friends, spouses, think anyone where there's a give and take. It's reciprocal.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our receiving relationships, and those are the ones where we are the beneficiary of someone else's care and attention. And so those are the relationships that we have with our elders and ancestors, with our heroes and inspirational figures, our teachers or mentors, even spiritual figures, right? So
the script.
What's that?
When we flip the script.
That's right. Anytime where we're getting, instead of we're the giver, we're now the receiver. So we're getting inspiration or care or wisdom or nurturing or any of those good qualities that inspire us to be our best or inspire us to take a step into our potential. They help us expand. Even the giving relationships also help us expand, because we're not just thinking of ourselves, we're thinking of others. And so that we expand that way. But when we're receiving, we're also expanding. Yes. So the relationships help us expand and help us grow into our possibility. As we go through life, we're going to have different balances of different ones. People that have young children at home, they're giving all the time, and they're just desperate to have some reciprocal activity, just like, please, can I get a break and just hang out with and have some adult conversation for half an hour. It's like, so there's at moments in life you can have imbalance, but over the course of life, we want to make sure you have balance. The most well-rounded lives have balance. Yes. And so in conscious home design, I said, all right, let's make sure that we intentionally create opportunity for all 3 kinds of relationship in the home. And then I took it one step further. I said, well, what is it possible to create opportunity for all 3 types of relationship, giving, receiving, and reciprocal, in every room in the home? So that we're really, because it's that important. It's the single biggest predictor of our life expectancy and our feelings of happiness and fulfillment. So I said, okay, let's bake it into the mold. Let's design with intention for relationships. What does that look like, though? And so I like to use it as an example, a room that people typically do not associate with relationships, and that is the bathroom. The bathroom is typically thought of as a private space where you go to get away, and take care of your business. However, it's actually a very ripe opportunity to connect and to feel and to nurture your relationships. For instance, if you have a window in your bathroom, a window to the outside,
Mhm.
you can easily put a plant or two there to get some daylight. And now you've created a little bit of an oasis, a little bit of a garden. And we know that physiologically, seeing plants, seeing the green energy actually lowers blood pressure and gives us feelings of calm, physically calming to us to see
Oh,
the plants. Yeah, they've done studies where when people see a nature scene, even if it's fake, even if it's just a photograph or a painting, but if it's just a lake or some trees or the ocean or a beach or anything, mountains, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But if they're seeing nature, it has mentally calming and also physically calming properties. It's universal, no matter who you are, anywhere in the world. Seeing a nature scene helps people regulate their breathing and their heart rate. However, when they showed people cityscapes, even beautiful skyline or beautiful neighborhood of architecture, beautiful houses lined up, whatever, does not produce the same effect. People may like it, and people may think, "Oh, that's a beautiful scene. What a nice, landscape or cityscape." But it doesn't have the same physiological response of calming the heart rate and regulating the breath that looking at nature does. So putting those plants in your home are going to help you. And it makes sense, right? Because our bodies evolved living in nature over all these, hundreds of thousands, millions of years, whatever, right? And so they didn't evolve living in cities or seeing architecture. Architecture is a recent addition, to humanity, right? So it makes sense that seeing nature is what satisfies the physical body. Yeah. So there's an opportunity for giving, and then you come into your bathroom and there's some life in there, and you can give it a little. It's low maintenance, give it a little bit of water once a week. There's water everywhere, just right. And if you don't have a window, well, you can put a full spectrum light bulb in the fixture and even set it on a timer if you want, so that giving some light to the plants, and they can survive with the right amount of even artificial light will work. And what about if you did a fish bowl, had a little bowl with a goldfish in it or a betta fish, something colorful, and you come in the morning like, "Oh, hi fish," and you give it a sprinkle of food, and then you brush your teeth, and it's like, now there's life, now you have like a bit of an oasis. It's not just a utility closet, where there's the toilet and the shower, but it's now a place where you're actually cultivating. You're starting to expand. You're cultivating a relationship in a very low maintenance, easy way, but still it brings a little bit of joy into your morning routine. Now we see this oftentimes, especially in master bathrooms, you'll see double bowl sinks. There's an opportunity to brush your teeth side by side with someone, with a wide counter with two sinks.
Right.
And so, and if you have it in your budget and your lifestyle, it's something that you choose to do, you can also, put an enlarged shower room with two shower heads. And that way, you don't have to take turns in the bathroom. You can both shower together, or you can have a large oversized bathtub that's big enough to soak, two people can soak in. It's very romantic. So you can have your reciprocal relationships opportunities, in the bathroom as well. And of course, for receiving relationships, we can certainly take a picture of an elder or ancestor or a hero or a spiritual figure or someone that we get that reminds us that of our potential, or that we're loved, or gives us inspiration, and so that while we're there, washing our face and doing our business and preparing our bodies to be presentable to the rest of the world, we can just take a moment to look at that and say, and there's that connection with a receiving relationship. And if you feel like, no, a picture is too prominent, I don't want to have a photo of my grandfather, on the wall, or of a spiritual figure or whatever, in my bathroom, you can certainly just take a quote, some inspiring quote that you like, and tape that to the top of the mirror, so that when you're there, you can just glance up and it's almost like an affirmation. Yeah. And you can just say, and so this thing, you can just take a moment in the morning or in the evening, when you're preparing for bed, to take a look at that and remind yourself, right? And so you can actually those 10 minutes in the bathroom, in the morning and in the evening, can actually be very intentional if you take the time to intend it and realize, oh wow. And they can be very nurturing rather than just rushing through and taking care of the body and doing your business. You can actually deepen your feelings of connection. Yeah. And so that's what we know leads to happy, long lives statistically, is those feelings of connection. And so here's an opportunity to do that. And you can go through every room in your home, even if it's your apartment, and look and analyze it. Do I have opportunity for giving relationships? Do I have opportunity for receiving relationships? Do I have opportunity for reciprocal relationships in these spaces? And if you find gaps, maybe you can, do something about it. It's up to you. It's your home. It's your life.
Even linking up. So if we take that baseline of relationships are the biggest deciding factor for the longevity and quality of lives.
Yeah.
Even taking into consideration the three relationships within the divisions, in this case, for example, the bathroom we're talking about with the quotes or the aspirational reference, maybe a photograph, for example.
Sure.
That's the kind of things that will support you in staying in that flow, because life will throw you up and down across the river, will put you through everything, but
Yeah.
those conscious decisions about the design of the home, about supporting those relationships, about picking things that will help you stay on track, will help with that fulfillment side of things. And by helping with that fulfillment, you can show up better and
That's
create those
right.
relationships.
Having those things in place are like putting down roots. When those things are in place, then when a storm comes, the tree of your life won't blow over.
Exactly.
You're rooted, right? And so we're not saying if you have a conscious home that storms and trials of life won't come. But we're saying we're trying to give you a good shelter and a good foundation to weather those storms. Yeah.
That's just brilliant, Taylor. And so, to pardon the pun, but to bring it home then, what will be the one actionable idea that you will pass on to listeners today?
It is to recognize that our relationships, all three, giving, receiving, and reciprocal, are the biggest factor in our success and happiness in life. And to look through your home for opportunities to cultivate the three types of relationship. If you want to do a personal consultation with me, or even impersonal, you can just you can go to my website, conscioushomedesign.com, and you can buy a copy, an instant PDF download of the book and the workbook and the audiobook. It's like $47, and do the exercises, and that will give you real clarity about things you can do. And if you want to, and you can do that anytime, no matter where you are in the world. But if you do want to talk with me, then schedule a consultation, and we can, and I can help you one-on-one with it. But that's the biggest thing, is the relationships. There's so many things we can do, but we'll start there, and that's something that anyone can do no matter where they are in the world.
That's brilliant, Taylor. Thank you so much for everything, and thank you for the work you're putting out into the world, and I really hope you can expand it across the nation.
Thanks, Jose. I appreciate the opportunity to meet you and talk with you and be on your podcast.
Thank you very much, Taylor.